Why, hello. Today we're going to look at inflation, what we can expect coming up. This is something that is on a lot of people's minds in countries around the world where inflation continues to go up. What's going to happen? I'm taking a look not just through the rest of this year, but through the end of 2023, the overall pattern of what we can expect. Living as we do in this age of consumption, it's easy to see our view of the world and our problems as something that is universal. But if you take a step back, you think about plants and animals, besides us, we're animals too, of course, but all the other animals on this planet, bacteria, they don't care about inflation. It's not something that concerns them. So this is something, a human issue that we've created and put on ourselves. And it's kind of interesting to think about where that comes from. There's a term coined in the 20th century, noosphere, which is this connective tissue of thought and information that we're all interacting with. And it can be through the world news, through the internet or TV or whatever, but it can also just be through our interactions with other people, because even if we're not directly interacting with the news, other people are, and it affects their moods, their perspectives, and so on. And we're affected by them. So consider it as things happen in the world news and they ripple through the world in a way that is very uniquely human. Now, I'm a big fan of the idea of stage theory. You can read about it. There's a lot of different models of stage theory, but what it comes down to is, and they may disagree on minor points, but the overall vision is that both individuals and societies go through stages, and that they have centers of gravity in which, an individual may fluctuate and be at different stages throughout the day, but overall they have a center of gravity that they stick to. And how this relates to economics is, economics is something that I think of as very strongly associated with this red energy in a lot of models, which, if you look at the chakras, red is this very, it's associated with our most basic survival needs. So it's not to say that it's lower just because it's low down on this, this totem pole of the chakras. What it means is that this is a term that you've heard of, Maslow's hierarchy, this pyramid. And before you can really deal with those higher things that we want to think about and dream about and associate, we need to have our lower levels satisfied. We need to have, a home, our food, and so on, our health. These things need to be satisfied before we can start working on our more grandiose ambitions. So I'm pointing this out just to say that the level that focuses on the economy, that focuses on inflation, sure, it's important, but putting all your energy on that is kind of like neglecting all these other parts of your body and your other parts of your mind and consciousness. You don't necessarily want to have your attention there 24/7. And the thing about the news is that it does tend to focus on that red energy, which really taps into your fears as well. Okay, so I did a reading looking at inflation through the end of 2023. I did a 3-card reading. So the first card is looking at the energy through the end of 2022. And for that, I'm seeing the Hermit. The Hermit it's an interesting character. It's a person, or, it's displayed by a person, but it can represent a society. It can represent, a place. It can be all kinds of things. But what it signifies is somebody that kind of has cultivated an inner energy through study or meditation or whatever, and takes that out into the world. And they may not necessarily be prepared to do that. Like, they're not necessarily an extrovert by nature, but when it happens is they go out into the world and they bring that energy into the world. So in terms of the economy, I see this as kind of a good sign, because I don't associate it with that kind of red energy. I associate it with, higher thought process and consciousness, and bringing that into the world I see as a good thing. So I'm not saying that inflation is not going to go up through the end of this year. I'm saying that the focus is going to be slightly moving towards higher energies, which I think is a good thing. Now for 2023, I did a two-card reading to kind of look at two halves of the year. And the first half, I'm seeing a Pentacles card, which is the Eight of Pentacles, and the second half, also a Pentacles card, the Queen of Pentacles. And this doesn't totally surprise me because discs or pentacle cards are very often associated with economics and having that platform to stand on and build a world. In terms of the first part, the Eight of Pentacles, this is more of a direct process card in which we are really strongly interacting, really attempting to rein in inflation. And I think, though, it is an overall a good sign because this is about constructing that platform that is allowing people to move beyond those basic needs and move to higher needs. And then in terms of the second half, the Queen of Pentacles, this is, I think, also a positive sign because I think a lot of the work that has been done in the early half of 2023 is going to be transitioning to a more of a receptive nature, which I associate the Queen cards, which receptive energy. They've kind of done the work and they just can kind of not sit back and relax, but the energy comes to them rather than having to go out and physically deal with the world. So if we've built this stronger platform for a culture in 2023, then I think it signifies that we will be able to move to this higher energy. One thing about the red level of the stage theories or chakras is that it tends to see things, see the world as either I have something or somebody else does. Like there's no win-win. It's either I win and they lose or I lose and they win. There's no win-win. And I think when you can transition though to the higher levels of consciousness, you do start to see that a win-win is possible. And one way to think about this is that, you have wars around the world, you have nuclear arsenals and weapons that are being built up. And the amount of money that is spent on those is billions of dollars every year, which is kind of amazing, right? And if you just can imagine a world in which there is no war, in which there's no need to build these arsenals up and to, waste human life and waste so much energy and money on conflict, we can divert that energy and money to other things. And there's no need to have, poor people. You can have everybody have a good standard of living. That is possible. It's just a matter of diverting that energy back. And you may say, oh, well, you have countries like the US, China, and Russia with irreconcilable differences, and they're never going to totally get along, so they have to prepare for these conflicts and so on. But here's an example. The other day, I'm staying still in Germany, and the other day I went to France, to Strasbourg, France. And to get there, I hopped on a train and I went there, and there was no border control. There was nobody asking to see my passport. And if you imagine, like 100 years ago, the idea that you could cross the border between France and Germany without even any kind of a border check, it would have been laughable, right? Because they had just, ended World War I, and there were still a lot of internal strife that would build to World War II. So the idea that one day there would be no borders between them, they would be using the same money system, that would have been, wild. You would have been considered crazy to even imagine that. And yet here we are today. So I think it comes down to dreaming of a possible world in which the US, Russia, China, and all these other superpowers don't have conflict, that they're able to live in some level of harmony, just as a lot of Europe is able to live in harmony today. Now, I don't want to get all Pollyanna-ish about it. Obviously, there's conflict within Europe and issues and political agendas and so on. But overall, it's, I would say, more peaceful and more in harmony than 100 years ago. So I did another reading looking at through the end of 2023. Will that focus be on that red energy? Will it stay there, or can it move to a higher energy? And what is the possibility of that happening? And for that, I'm seeing the Moon card, and the Moon is a very dreamlike state that I don't associate with that red energy at all. It's so ethereal and dreamlike that, in dreams, nobody's worried about if I have enough money or whatever. You just dream whatever you want to dream, and it's a very magical place of possibilities. So I think that is a good sign that through the end of 2023, we can expect a shift upward away from that red energy. Finally, because I always like to empower you, the viewer, I asked what you can do to help that happen, help that possibility come into being. And it doesn't totally surprise me. The card that came up is the Six of Wands. A Wands is a creative energy card in which the guy riding the horse can be seen as basically carrying your vision into the world. And this is what I'm always talking about, is that you need to, as an individual, bring a higher energy into the world, bring a higher vision into the world. If your highest vision of life is simply to survive, which is that red energy, your biggest dreams are going to be basically, have money, have a house, have a car, have food, have things, have a fence around your house, and have a border that keeps others away from your things. But, a higher vision would be other people succeeding too, everybody having enough, everybody having a wonderful life, and less focus on your things and more on your relationships, your connection to the environment and people of the world. So I think if you can dream of something more in line with that, then you're going to be able to help bring that vision into possibility. And for that, I thank you if you do that. So that's my look at inflation. What would you like me to do a reading on next? Let me know in the comments. And if you would like a personal tarot reading or life coaching, you can always contact me here. And I hope to see you in future videos. Thank you. Bye.